See, for us, we knew it was not enough just to fix this year's fiscal budget crisis. We need to make sure for the next 2 years, and the 2 after that, and the 2 after that, and for the years to come, that they looked back in time and said this was the time when leaders in this state stood up and did what they should have done for years before. They stood up and took responsibility for the bills of the past and made sure we didn't pass them on to the generations of the future. That's what we're doing with this measure. Now, for all the talk and all the signs out there, the irony is what we passed into law, what I signed into law yesterday, is ultimately reforms to the budget that will protect middle-class jobs and middle-class taxpayers. They can say all they want about the middle class, but they presume the middle class are people who just work for government. The middle class for years in this state have been the people who time and time again, as more and more politicians have piled up more expense and more spending and more excess in government, the middle class taxpayer has been the one stuck footing the bill. It is time for that to stop, and that day started yesterday. Even though the last couple of weeks, the media here in this state and across this country have been obsessed with process. They've been obsessed with covering the process instead of the substance, and now finally we can talk about what this is really about and actually have people pay attention. What this is about is what I said a month ago, and Roger stood right with me. You heard me say this. I said this bill for the remainder of this fiscal year, starting the first week of April, all of us, me, Roger, the rest of the legislature, my cabinet, all the rest of us, will start making a modest contribution to pay for a portion of our pension and a portion of our health care. 5.8% for pension, 12.6% for our health insurance. Now, looking around this room, there's probably a lot of people saying, hey, I'd love a deal like that. I got a younger brother who works as a banquet manager at a hotel. He works part-time as a bartender. His wife, I just talked to her, she was going off to work at the department store. They got 2 beautiful girls. They are a typical Wisconsin middle-class family. At the start of this debate a month ago, he came over and he saw me and he said, I don't get this. What are they so upset about? He goes, I pay more than $800 just to cover my health insurance premium and a little bit, just a little bit I can put away in my 401k. I'd love a deal like you're putting on the table right now. Middle-class taxpayers all across the state are paying much more even than what we're proposing under the law, or the bill I signed into law yesterday. This is ultimately about protecting the middle class. You see, as I mentioned a month ago and thankfully was able to rescind yesterday, I said if we don't do this, the alternative is to do what they're doing state after state, whether it's a Democrat or Republican governor alike. Nearly every state in this country is facing a budget crisis. In New York and California, where both those states have Democrat for governors, they're cutting billions of dollars for their schools and their local governments. And what they're doing there is leaving it up to those local governments to make it up, either through massive layoffs of teachers and local government employees, which ultimately would hurt our services, or they're passing it on to the taxpayer through massive property tax increases. And what we did yesterday, what I signed into law, we protect middle-class jobs because no longer do we at the state nor at the local... And again, we do it in the budget I presented a week ago Tuesday in a way that literally freezes property taxes in this state. Yeah. Whether it's been in Bayfield or Ashland or Iron or Douglas or anywhere else across this state, what I've heard time and time again is from the retired couple living on a fixed income on Social Security who can barely afford to live in their homes because they haven't got a cost of living adjustment under the CPI for the last couple of years. You're right. Whether it's the young family just starting out, you know, with a mortgage and new child care for the first time, and they've had their pay frozen for the last couple of years. Whether it's the working family, the husband and wife who, in order to make sure their coworkers kept their job, they pay a little bit more for the health insurance and a little bit more for the retirement to make sure the good neighbor of theirs who works at the same plant didn't have to lose their job. The small business owner who's barely able to get by in these tough economic times, but is getting by, but cannot get by if property taxes go up 5, 6, 7, 8, 9% again like they've done in the past. What we propose in this plan ultimately ensures that the property taxpayers, the middle-class property taxpayers of this state, will not be stuck footing the bill. Instead, all of us, myself included in government, will make a small sacrifice to make sure we truly protect the middle class in the state of Wisconsin. That's what this plan is. Now, in addition to protecting the middle class when it comes to jobs and the property taxpayers, the other thing that you probably haven't heard a lot about, although I finally got a nice editorial the other day in the Wall Street Journal where they allowed me to explain this, is this not only saves jobs, it not only protects property taxpayers, this ultimately makes government work better. It makes it work better. Isn't that what you want? You see, I told the story of a teacher down in Milwaukee who a year ago was named the Outstanding New Teacher of the Year. And a week later, she got a layoff notice. And you know why? It's because under her collective bargaining agreement, seniority trumps anything else. See, for teachers like her, for others in government now under this bill, seniority in a union contract no longer trumps performance and merit. Instead, the good work for the taxpayers. That's not only good for the citizens of Wisconsin who now get better government. That's good for the good, decent public officials who don't want to do more than anything. They want to do their job. The great teachers, the great educators, the great public servants. They don't want to be stuck in a system where the guy next to them is failing to do the job and they're stuck picking up the slack. They want to do what they came to do. That's to do a good job, to teach our kids, to provide city and local services, to help the state. The good workers under this measure win because once and for all we can support performance instead of being stuck with seniority and union contracts. Okay. Now these are bold political moves. But you know what? They're pretty modest changes. What we're asking for is modest in terms of dollars. It's modest in terms of common sense for most people in this state. But they're bold political moves. You see, we found that out about 3 weeks ago. When, after the first week, the union leader said, well, you make that 5 and 12% commitment, our people can't handle that. They told us they're going to be out of their homes, they're going to be out in the streets. Suddenly a week went by and they realized I wasn't flinching. And they said, well, wait a minute, we'll give that up. We'll give you the 5 and 12. Apparently all those people refinanced their homes or something happened because that changed. Now, of course, we've seen in the last 3 weeks that was a bogus claim. And I heard, in fact, we had to school David Gregory on Meet the Press the other day because he didn't understand that the state union leader for WEAC and the state union leader for ASME cannot commit to contracts in 1,000+ municipalities, 72 counties, and 424 school districts. And as we pointed out in the last 3 weeks, local union after local union after local union has run to their local governments and rammed through contracts that include no additional pension and health care contribution. So I said facts, you know, always the facts will set you free. In this case, the rhetoric doesn't match the record. Actions speak louder than words. They never intended on doing that. But the reality is these are modest changes. What you're going to see, and I believe every day after we signed the bill into law yesterday, every day the state's move forward is going to be a better day for all of us who understand just how important these changes were. Because even among some of these protesters who've been ginned up by the national union bosses who come in with millions of dollars from Washington, even after all that, they're going to see a month or two down the road that the real changes in the state are simple. Public employees like me are going to pay a little bit more for pension and a little bit more for health care, but still a whole lot less than the average middle-class taxpayer. And those public employees, particularly those good, hard-working, decent public employees who in the past didn't want to be legally forced to be in a union, now have the right to choose whether he or she wants to be in a union and no longer have a union on the paycheck. I like to hear that. You see, that's important. Because now they have the right to choose, which means in some cases up to $1,000 for some teachers that automatically comes out of their paycheck. Oh, now I even got a bigger one. Look at that. So I'm going to get a beer stein next, right? That's right. You can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen, right? Or in this case, get in the kitchen over here. But those employees, including some teachers who have to take up to $1,000 out of their paycheck to pay for those union dues, can now opt to not be in the union and instead can use that money to pay for their health care, to pay for their pension, to ultimately pay for their kids' education or whatever else they want in the future. They have the right to choose. No longer will the government mandate that they have to be a part of that union. Those are the changes that will impact our workers, not other things. Again, you listen, you read the signs, and you think we're taking away all their rights. Rights are not there because of collective bargaining. The rights in this state come from the Constitution of the state and the Constitution for the United States of America, and in neither place do they talk about collective bargaining.